Microsoft officially ended support for Windows 7 in January 2020, and they officially ended support for Windows 8.1 in January 2023. And after the 14th of October 2025, Microsoft will no longer support Windows 10. Now, with all of those versions of Windows, after official support has ended, you can still use your computer. Windows will still run. But you will no longer get bug fixes, security fixes, technical updates, new features. You're on your own. Now, in the commercial world, there are valid reasons to stay on an outdated version of Windows, and it's normally so that you can use an app that doesn't have support for a newer version. But for 99.99% of the world, for most of us, especially if you're connected to the internet, you should not use an outdated version of Windows that is not actively supported. It's just too risky out there, to browse the internet worrying about privacy issues, worrying about malware, viruses, spyware. It's too risky. I would not advise it. Now, many of you who are watching this will be using Windows 11 already, and you'll be familiar with it because Windows 11 has been the default for any new Windows computer for the last few years. I've got Windows 11 on our Surface Pro. I upgraded that a few years ago, and nearly every day of the week I use a Windows 11 laptop because my work laptop has Windows 11. So I'm familiar with it, and I know it, and I like it. I mean, to me, it's just a refinement of Windows 10. They've moved some things around, they've changed it a little cosmetically, and you have to get used to some new settings areas. But it's Windows. It's just a new flavor of Windows. That being said, this Dell XPS laptop and my main PC in the background here, they are still on Windows 10. Now, for this Dell XPS 13, there's really no valid reason for me to not upgrade to Windows 11. This is just laziness on my part. I do want to upgrade this to Windows 11 soon, but I haven't. I've just not got around to it, and I should, because there's zero risk for me upgrading. This is a glorified Chromebook for me at this point because I mostly use it for the browser. I mostly store pretty much everything on the cloud. If I reset that or the drive failed, it doesn't bother me because I'm not losing anything. So that's a zero risk upgrade for me. But I've not upgraded my main PC from Windows 10 to Windows 11, and there's two reasons for that. Firstly, well, one is I've got a hang up about Windows upgrades, and I think a lot of people my age, I'm mid-40s, and anyone older than me as well, you might have a hang up about upgrading Windows. When I first went to university in the 90s, I spent a few £1,000s on a PC, my first PC, and it had Windows 95, and I loved it. I was a computer guy, I was a nerd, I loved it, and I went from 95 to 98, 2000, ME, XP, etc. I went through all of those versions, and anyone who did the same, well, you'll know that Windows can be buggy. Even when you used an official Windows release that was like a year or two old, it had bugs, a lot of bugs. And quite frequently what would happen would be that you had a nicely efficient computer that was finally bug-free from the last version of Windows, but you wanted the new version, you upgraded, and then all of a sudden half your apps, half your games, half the software you used just stopped working because there wasn't support for it anymore. It was always a troublesome thing to do, and it ruined a lot of weekends. There was a lot of weekends you want to go out, and then all of a sudden that 5-minute upgrade became 3 days because there was so many things. It wasn't just upgrading Windows, it was trying to find workarounds and fixes for all the apps that didn't work with the new version of Windows. So you were getting it from all angles. So I still have a hang up about that, and I've always been a little bit more conservative with upgrading from one version of Windows to the next. I don't want to jump in there early because I know how much hassle it can cause. Now, the second reason kind of piggybacks on the first reason, but the second reason is, well, look around here. This is my main battle station, as they call it on Reddit, and this is where you see me most of my YouTube videos. This is where I record my videos. You can see my overhead camera, my main camera. I've actually got 4 kind of cameras connected in different situations. I've got lights. It's a lot of cables, it's a mess, but it works. It's a finely mangled mess of organization. It looks like chaos, it is chaos, but it works. I've got a lot of things going on, but it all works. And I don't want to ruin that. When I was first prompted to upgrade from Windows 10 to Windows 11, I was very, very reluctant to do so because of all the experiences I had in the past of, upgrades just causing chaos. And, on this computer, there's a few key apps, OBS for recording, Davinci Resolve for video editing, but there's a lot of other things in the background, like plugins and all these other things in the background to help me do what I do on YouTube and beyond. And upgrading to Windows 11 was just a risky affair. And I'm sure many of you are in the same situation where you want to upgrade, but you also know that it could end up being a couple of days of madness of trying to retrieve files, of trying to get things set up again correctly. And that's time I just haven't put aside to upgrade. I just haven't put aside to do that task. But I know the clock is ticking. I've got until October 2025 to upgrade. I'd ideally like to do it before then, get on the latest version of Windows. I do have the Mac Mini here. I have been experimenting with migrating to Mac. That's still something I am thinking about doing. So this might be a non-issue because I just buy a Windows laptop in the future. But it's something I probably should do. And I think it's something that most of you watching this should do in the future. I understand why people stay on Windows 10. I understand it. But over the next year, you're going to have to make the jump to Windows 11. It's the best thing to do. And I think it's probably the safest time to do it as well. If you'd asked me a few years ago, I would have said, don't upgrade yet. It's too risky. A lot of the apps you're using might not support Windows 11 yet. Hold back for now. But I think most applications now have support for Windows 11. It's quite risk-free. So you just have to go through the upgrade process. As I said, I've done that with the Surface Pro. It's pretty painless. But the more complex your setup is, the more reluctant you might be to do that upgrade. But just be aware of that date, October 2025. On the 14th of October, you will no longer have support for Windows 10. You ideally want to upgrade before then. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, guys. I hope you've learned something. I'd love to hear from all of you who are in the Windows world, have a Windows computer, and you've went through the upgrade process. And I'd love to hear from those of you who are like me and have been a little bit reluctant to do so. Thanks for watching, guys. Be sure to leave a comment below, and until next time, take care.